prep work is going to be sandblasting, steam clean, and dry. We're going to roll right into the bond, the all-in-one bond. We're going to be using a disposable paintbrush versus a microbrush, and I'll explain why later. We're going to do a nice thin coat. We're going to pull it as far as we can to the other side. And then we're going to go back and do it one more time. We're going to do a light puff of air, not a blast, just a light. And then we'll go straight into curing. And I'll explain more about curing during the demo in more detail. So we'll talk about texture. It should be shiny, not sticky. First one I use is dark plum. I think I use this on every case. I think everybody knows that by now because I talk about it constantly. This is how I'm going to place it on. I'm going to use a disposable paintbrush to pull it and push it in all the places that I want. And then I'm actually going to keep going with the modifiers. I use the dark violet for around like where the connective tissue is. Same thing, I'm going to use the paintbrush. I'll go into bright red. I like to use bright red to highlight. Looks really good underneath. I'll place it, move it around. Once I get all of that into place, I will go back with the microbrush with alcohol just to make sure there's nothing on the teeth. It's nice and clean. On the intaglio, do the same thing. It's not saturated, but I'll go in more detail later. Cure. I am going to add something a little different than I do on my provisionals, which is the opaquer. And I use opaquer to add a little body and some anatomy underneath. I'm using the opaquer and the root on this. And I generally place that right above the cervical with a paintbrush. And I'll actually pull it up, cure. After curing, we're going to go into the strip. I'll show and talk about how I warm it up with my fingers and how I place the strip on the midline, place pressure, and then work my way around. And then the first tool I'm going to use is the Harvest Papilla tool. Once that top layer is peeled off, to start shaping the papilla. Then we'll move right into using the silicone tips. I really like this shape. I'm kind of gravitating more towards this shape than my typical point, because I like to kind of like roll up underneath. And I'll show that. I use an Explorer to remove any excess. And then in those hard to reach places, the Explorer comes in handy. I actually use the back end of it as well to help shape the cervical. This is the Ivoclar tool, which I'm really starting to love. I like the little paddle part, the larger one, and there's a point. So it has various tips that you can place on the end of these. These have been my go-tos. Again, I'm going to just clean off any type of resin that's on the teeth because I don't want to have to remove it with a burr. Once everything's shaped up, I do have some sponges, and I'll tell you where I get them from. So there's two different textures. As far as stippling goes, I kind of like to place texture in versus kind of putting the dots in it. It's, you know, whatever you want to do. This is just my little trick. Cure the whole strip all the way across. I am going to place today some of the red to create some veins, but I'm also going to be placing the light pink, the reddish light pink in some of these areas. And I'll tell you why during the demo. From here, I'm actually going to be sealing around the gingiva, but I'm also going to be pulling it upwards to help float some of these colors that look like veins. I use red and blue across. And then when this cures, it'll be all one nice, you know, smooth piece. I will use the flame, it's a crosshatch flame, just to help round or smooth off any of these edges inapproximately. And I like this one because it does more smoothing than it does cutting. The next thing I'm going to walk into is polishing. Speed polish, stiff bristle brush is going to be my first medium to heavy pressure. I'm going to start with the resin first. I'm going to work into a felt wheel, working all the way around. Same thing, medium to heavy pressure. The cotton puff is the very last, which I will pull down over the teeth. Very light pressure with nothing on it. And then from there, I'll do a steam clean and wipe off with a microfiber. And that's it.